Alright, some of the stuff they had on my paperwork, they said that some of the things I had in my vehicle were fine by themselves, and they were by themselves, but combined together, they could be used to make some pretty potent explosives. That is true. That is very true. Now there's ooh, nice, a lace band. This could be used for making slingshots. Huh. So, one of those combinations, I had sugar in my vehicle. Why did I have sugar? Because I'm addicted to it. I put it in everything. Another one of those things is, well, it's stump remover. You pour it on your stumps and you get it wet and it eats your stumps away. Now, if you mix yourself 60% of that stump remover with 40% sugar by weight, then you've got yourself rocket fuel. Of course, if you add just a little bit more of that stump remover and you use just a little bit less sugar, you get yourself an explosive. You pump some oxygen into the mix, because that stump remover is actually an oxygenator. But you put some air bubbles in the mix and you got yourself a high explosive. There's other stuff that I had in my vehicle, such as creamer. Is creamer an explosive? Actually, it is. Depends on the type of cream, though. If you're talking about table cream, no. If you're talking about the artificial creamer, yes. It's highly explosive. It's powder. It's more explosive than sugar, and it's also more explosive than powdered sugar, and more explosive than flour. You might not think of flour as explosive, but take a handful and throw it on a gas burner. Tell me what happens to your face. Now, that's not the explosive combination that I want to talk about in this video, though. What I want to talk about is when you've got a criminal element, such as the Bollingers, and you've got yourself a stupid organization like the Thin Blue Line, and then you put those two criminal organizations together, you got yourself a pretty potent explosive. They're pretty powerful. They can scare a lot of people. For me, I'm fighting against those bastards, and I'm doing the best I can without physical violence. Now, when you get the things that the police like to use in order to victimize people, like the term mentally ill, well, we're talking about something even more potent. That's putting the oxygen bubbles into your potassium nitrate, and that's the stump remover, and your sugar. This gives them a license to do whatever they want. Now, there was a lot of stuff that was used in court that was from out of jurisdiction, that was used to prevent me from even being able to speak on my own behalf. The term mentally ill was one of them. There's a lot of other things that were used as well. Now, for me, going through all of those in one video would take quite a while. But having public pretenders, a different one every time I went to court, and none of them have reviewed my case, but they're going to try to argue for my bond, well, they're obviously not going to do a very good job. There's a lot of stuff that was slander in there, like Kara Miles saying that she was Natalie's mother's best friend and that me and Natalie dated. Those are two outright lies. However, what do you expect out of Webb Wingnuts? Now, there's a lot of these people may have had good intentions, but mostly it was malicious. And then they tried to hide behind "in Jesus' name." That's another potent thing to put into the mix. That's your high explosive right there. You get all these Christians together who want to believe somebody who says "in Jesus' name" like it makes it true. Well, that just shows the stupidity that we're living in. I chose not to hide behind the Jesus. I like the Jesus example, not the rhetoric and not the dogma. See, when I chose to be a decent excuse for a human being at 21, not that I wasn't before that, I chose Jesus as my example. Does that mean I'm going to spit in somebody's eyes and they're not going to be blind anymore? No, I'm not going to spit in somebody's eyes because that's considered assault. There's a lot of things Jesus did that would get you put in prison today. But for me, it was his example of how he treated other human beings. Also, Jesus was not above chasing a motherfucker with a whip. I didn't chase anybody with a weapon. Nobody. Matter of fact, when I was assaulted, I took it repeatedly. Now, there's another thing to be said for an explosive combination, and that's the race card. Now, a lot of people don't think that's a big major deal when you're a white guy, but then again, we've got Black Lives Matters. Now, I've marched with these people in Denver and in Boulder. The reason for that is because I believe in human rights, and if I'm just going to let a black man get beat down for being black, then I deserve to get beat down for watching. That's one of them things that comes down to the Jesus, yet again. Jesus said, he who was without sin cast the first stone, and meanwhile all these motherfuckers want to cast stones and then whine like mules when I cast them back. Meanwhile, people are casting fists at me, and I'm not allowed to cast them back. Mr. Man Bun, he got to feel a small portion of my wrath. This is one of the people who assaulted me in Clearview. One of those places where I was asking for a police officer, and instead of a police officer coming and listening to me, he came and listened to them. And they were able to falsify information, lie on paperwork, and omit evidence. See, they didn't show the parts that they did wrong. So somehow, magically, that's all right. Now, any public defender worth his weight in dog shit would know to get all of the evidence. How is it that I magically made it from out in the hallway into the timeout room without any of that being videotaped? Well, it was videotaped. So the people at Clearview have committed felonies by either erasing that information or omitting it. That's another explosive combo. Let's see what section we're in now. Oh, slingshots. $4.97 for that one right there. You know, you can double band those. You can get them to pull back hard enough you could actually kill somebody with them. You can do the same thing with a crossbow. Same thing with a bow. The point is that you can kill somebody with it. It's the point that I choose not to. I know how, but I choose not to. Now, there's public opinion out there, like them explosives that I could have made out of what was in my vehicle. And I could easily lie and say, oh no, I don't know how to do that. I have no idea how to do that. Fact is, I do know how to do that. I'm well aware of how to do that. I'm also well aware of how dangerous it can be for the user. I choose to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, but sometimes the right thing includes using the word cunt or telling a bitch they're a bitch. I'm not sexist about it though. There's specific rules that I use for the terms that I use. I'm not just going to call somebody a bitch for nothing. I'm not just going to call somebody a cunt for nothing. If your bullshit and rhetoric gets someone injured or killed, yeah, you and I are going to have issues, and you can deal with those names. And I'm not going to feel bad for calling you those names. Now, I do feel bad for calling Natalie those names because she's dead. But at the same time, I'm not going to stop using those names. I won't. Social justice, that means doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. Not just for black people, not just for women. If the rules are different depending on who you are, then those rules do not apply because those rules are wrong. If there's things that a police officer can do to me that I would get charged with felony assault for, if an officer does that to me, they should be charged with felony assault. Now let's look at some other stuff here. thermoses. You can fill them with all sorts of stuff. Propane containers. Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris, they used those kind of things at the school that they tried to blow up. Now these containers here, they're stainless steel. You can actually turn these into shape charges. Put them on the end of a stick. Use that very same sugar and potassium nitrate combination I was telling you about. You can actually make yourself a rocket that'll take out a tank. You can also go through your cupboards and find some stuff you could do the same thing with. You can go to the dollar store and get all this stuff cheaper. Fact is, there are a lot of things that you can do that are wrong. There are a lot of things you can do that are harmful if you so choose. But do you choose to do so? I use my mouth. And although it doesn't always connect properly with my brain, it's still a useful tool. As far as manipulating people, I shouldn't have to try to manipulate people into doing the right thing or being honest. A lot of people were dishonest. A lot of people who were trying to help me were dishonest. Like Veronica Randall. She lied and said that I had hurt my back at work. Now everything else she said in that little series of sentences was correct. Pretty much. She did get me that job. I did lose that job over hurting my back. But if I'd have hurt my back at work, I'd have gotten workman's comp. I didn't hurt my back at work. I hurt my back moving out of my shop. And then there's Peach's brother, Gibo. Gibo lied on a post and said that he gave me a ride down to the cop shop. He didn't. The police gave me a ride down to the cop shop because I called them. Because Natalie was missing. When the police originally called me on the 28th of December of 2017, I had been dreading that call for over a year. I've been trying to get a peaceful resolution to it for over a year. I've been trying to get to see my friends and family for over a year. Meanwhile, Natalie's friends and family were treating her like hell. You guys think she killed herself over the things that I said? No, she didn't. That's not to say it's not a contributing factor. Also, it should be noted that had they come forward and told the truth instead of slandering my name to the point that I was being threatened and assaulted, well, I wouldn't have had to expose anyone. They say the truth will set you free. Natalie was unwilling or unable to set herself free. She was unwilling or unable to tell the truth. That's for the same reason that all these other people feared. Now, when it comes to Veronica, she didn't lie intentionally, necessarily. Maybe she just didn't remember the events as they actually happened. Or maybe she was just trying to help. But that's the problem with the little white lie. Even when you're trying to help, it's wrong. Like Gibo, when he said that he gave me a ride to the police station, he wasn't lying to try to get people to look the wrong way. He was lying because he wanted to help the situation. The problem is, I felt highly insulted by it. I held Gibo in a far greater regard before he did that. But you know what? I still hold him in high regard. I still have a great deal of respect for the man. No, I did lie. I lied outright. Everybody who knows me knows I'm not willing to hurt people and I'm not willing to kill people. However, if you put drugs into my system, you've done yourself something wrong. I had to lie and say that I was willing to kill the president and willing to kill the people who threatened to kill me. I threatened to put them in the morgue. Why did I do that? Try to get an honest day in court. See, they did these things to me for an entire year. And then, when I do it, somehow magically it's wrong. Somehow magically I'm off my rocker and I'm crazy. Nope, I'm overwhelmed. I'm not just going to continue speaking out about these people. I'm going to continue preparing for war. I fight my wars differently, though. If I have to kill someone to win a war, I'm not going to fight it. And that's the whole point to be made here. I'm still me, even though I'm overwhelmed. And even though I had to lie, and even though it's something that I feel bad for, it's not something that I am ashamed of. Because it went to prove a point. It's okay for them, it's not okay for me. It's okay for hundreds of people to take part in slandering my name, hundreds of people to threaten to kill me, and the police wouldn't even take a look. But then when I do it, just once, to the people who actually did it to me, somehow magically I am some terrible monster, and Jennifer Farina Bollinger gets to pretend like her and her entire family were threatened to be killed. Well, anybody who watched that post, anybody who actually watched it, as scared as they might be, because I do scream scary, they'll notice that every one of them Bollingers had to admit to something in order to paint it out like I was threatening their life. They had to admit to threatening my life. They had to admit to lying about me. They had to admit to a lot of different things. Now the police, obviously, they were hell-bent and entrenched in making sure that their wrongdoing was covered. And they used the Bollingers to do it. The Bollingers used the police to do it. Meanwhile, most of the people who offered to help me are actual cowards. They're too afraid to come forward and too afraid to tell the truth. Too afraid of the consequences of public opinion while telling me things like, you shouldn't care what other people think. What other people think can get you killed. I love dinosaurs. So even though these web sleuths and these Bollingers and these internet junkies and friggin' quacked out crazies who are all infatuated with death wanted to all come down on me, I'm still here. And I'm still fighting the best way I know how. By keeping drugs out of my system, because as soon as they put drugs in your system, they get to pretend like they're in the right and everything that they did is justified. They did this in multiple states. They do the exact same things. The Chapel Sheriff's Department used the same tactics as the Boulder Police Department. That's not going to stop me from speaking out against all of them.